Welcome into NBA Now. I am your host, Harrison Graham, Chase Sr. along with me as well. You can follow us on Twitter. I'm at HGrahamNFL, NFL NBA coverage over there. He is at Chase_Senior. Let's get you guys caught up on the latest trade rumors as we are less than 24 hours away from the NBA trade deadline coming and going. Kyle Lowry, the top name out there right now.
It's going to be fascinating to see what happens to Kyle Lowry because he could really push a team over the edge, especially when you look at the playoff and championship contenders. And this is new news that came out right before the show. According to Woj, in addition to the 76ers and the Heat, and the Clippers have also been tied to Lowry, how about the Los Angeles Lakers being tied to Lowry as well? Now, they'll have to do a bunch of salary cap maneuvering because they don't have a ton of cap space in order to absorb a $30+ million salary like Kyle Lowry's. But the Raptors have lost 9 straight games, Harrison, and they should sell, especially considering Lowry's going to be a free agent after this season. Why not get some assets back? Because if you trade him to a team like the Heat, you can ask for Precious Achiuwa, you can ask for Tyler Hero, maybe Duncan Robinson back, or another team will give you draft or player assets, so I think it's a smart move.
Yeah, I'm with you here. I think this is a team that should sell, and hey, you got a title, right? Like, it's harder to sell when you don't make it to the top of the mountain, but they made it there. They got there. I think it's easier to it's not like the Rockets, right, who kept hanging on, trying to, get to that championship level, and now they find themselves in an obvious selling scenario as well. Say goodbye to Kyle Lowry. Appreciate your services. One day you'll retire as a Raptor and probably enter the Hall of Fame as a Raptor too, since he does have that championship under his belt. I think Philadelphia and Miami are still the top contenders. It'll be interesting how thick into it the Lakers end up getting, but I do think, and I think you agree with me, Chase, that Kyle Lowry will get dealt. And also, just quickly here, as to your point that the Raptors should sell, Norman Powell's been drawing some buzz as well, which you mentioned on yesterday's show.
Yeah, and over the last few weeks, Norman Powell is averaging 25 points per game. So you see the numbers right there for this season, averaging a tick under 20. He has been on a tear the last few weeks. And Harrison, you and I had a conversation last week. You said, guess who one of the hottest players in the NBA is? And we're like, we're throwing out superstar names. Norman Powell has been that guy, and he's been shooting like 50% from the floor in that span and 45% from three. He's been unbelievable.
It's not one of those weird volume things where he's taking 25 shots a game. It's like this dude's shooting 50+ from the field, 45+ from three. This is an asset. We know he can defend. That's always been his kind of go-to card, but now he's turning into a legit offensive player. So we'll see if the Raptors sell. Obviously, Kyle Lowry the focus as we get closer to the deadline. So if he does get traded, and these are truly the top 2 contenders, who gets him? Type MIA for the Miami Heat, type PHI for the Philadelphia 76ers. We'll make this the pinned comment on today's video, so go ahead and get your votes in. Let's talk Lonzo Ball now as we get to our next trade rumor here. Is he going to be on the move here?
I think so. From the New Orleans Pelicans' perspective, they have 2 superstars already in Zion Williamson and Brandon Ingram. And you have to project and look forward. Zion is going to demand a max contract. There's no doubt about it. Brandon Ingram is as well. So where does that leave Lonzo Ball? Possibly on the outside looking in and on the chopping block. Now, I think it's a complete myth that Lonzo Ball has been a bust. In fact, Lonzo Ball is having a career year this year, and the knock on him in the past is that he is a terrible three-point shooter. That's not true. Lonzo Ball is shooting nearly 39% from three-point range, and we're not talking about 3 attempts per night. There's volume there. He's shooting and chucking up 8 3-pointers a game. So Lonzo Ball is actually one of the most intriguing trade candidates for me because of the versatility to his game and the improvements that he's made throughout his career, because that 3-point percentage, which was knocked earlier on in his career, has gotten better each year.
Selfishly, I would like to see him stay and see if this 3-headed young trio could make it work with B.I., Ball, and obviously Zion Williamson. But there's kind of been chatter the last year. He doesn't really like it down in New Orleans. I think he's a bigger market guy, and I'm not just saying that because of his dad, LeVar. I think he would like to play in a Chicago, in a New York, and get more of that spotlight, because not only is he in a small market, he's not Zion. Zion's getting all the focus with the Pelicans, so I think that's something he's interested in. And these teams, and probably a few others like the Denver Nuggets, have shown some interest in acquiring Lonzo Ball. I'm not quite as convinced he gets moved as a Kyle Lowry, but it's like 50-50. I think there's at least a pretty good chance. The reason I'll say he may not, they have him under contract one more year.
Exactly,
so they could wait until next year when he's a rental and try to trade him then, but you're probably not getting max value at that point if you are New Orleans. So if there's even an inkling of doubt you'll be able to re-sign him, now's the time to trade Lonzo Ball.
Here's the thing to note, too. The Pelicans have been going on with a very interesting experiment. They've been using Zion as a point guard and in the point forward role, and on the fast break, he's been the guy who's been commanding the basketball, which has now led Lonzo Ball to play a lot on the wing, almost at times like a 3-and-D wing guy. I think he's obviously more capable, and he prefers being the point guard.
Yeah, I totally agree with that point on Lonzo Ball. Hey, if any of these guys get traded, even if they don't, we're going to be live. Go ahead and subscribe. Turn on those notifications so you don't miss any of our trade deadline coverage. We're live today. We're going live tomorrow. We'll hand out free agency grades. It's going to be a whole lot of fun. You don't want to miss any of it from Chase and myself. Hit that big red button and subscribe. Share that link with a friend. It's youtube.com/chatsportstv. Let's talk Indiana Pacers here, Chase, because the last several years they've kind of been a 4 through 6 type of seed in the Eastern Conference. A threat, but not really a contender, if you will. Now they've fallen back a bit, and a couple of their players have been connected to trade rumors.
A name to watch here, Malcolm Brogdon. When he's healthy, he's one of the better guards in the NBA, and the Pacers are listening to calls on Brogdon and Domantas Sabonis, which is really interesting, is too. That could mean and signal that the Indiana Pacers are just completely selling, which I don't think they should do. They have Karis LeVert, Brogdon, Sabonis. I think that is a pretty solid trio, but they traded away Victor Oladipo, who's supposed to be a free agent this upcoming season. Imagine if they had him as well. I know Karis LeVert came in and replaced him, but something to monitor about the Indiana Pacers, they could just fully sell and say, you know what, we are completely rebuilding, because when you're in the middle part of the playoff standings, it doesn't do you any good because you're not able to pick up and draft premium players in the NBA draft when you're in that type of slot.
So the Brogdon angle of this I can almost get. Like, if you can get a first for Brogdon, the thought here is, okay, Karis LeVert can replace him. They're similar type of players. LeVert's less injury-prone than Brogdon. That's been a problem for him, but obviously he's an excellent shooter. Sabonis, I think he's more in the, okay, if we get overwhelmed, 3 first-round picks offered, we'll move him. I don't think they're actively shopping Sabonis,
I don't think so either.
I think Brogdon, if they got a first for him, I think honestly they'd move him. He's in that 4-year, $85 million contract, which was probably a slight overpay for the Pacers a couple of years ago. I think a Sabonis trade would be pretty surprising. Like, if he gets moved, this is probably the best player that will get moved, and kind of a name that has just started to surface. I'd put this at like 10%, but the fact that his name's been brought up is pretty interesting.
You're talking about 2 players in Brogdon and Sabonis who are both averaging more than 20 points per game, and Sabonis was an all-star earlier this year. So he's gotten some league-wide credit for his development, his play, and his progress. I actually think he's somewhat underrated. Both of those guys, Brogdon and Sabonis, they are premium players.
So who gets traded? You think it'll be Malcolm Brogdon? You think it'll be Domantas Sabonis? I think it's going to be both. Get it together. Type MB for Brogdon, DS for Sabonis. Type B for both. You can type N for neither if you think neither of them are going to get moved. Let us know what you guys think when it comes to these Pacer stars. Give us a follow on our Twitter pages, because Chase and I will answer all your NBA-related questions, all sports-related questions, because that's what we do here at Chat Sports. Both live on YouTube, but we can't get to everyone. So tweet at Chase, give him a follow at Chase_senior. You can follow and tweet at me at HGramNFL. You NBA fans, trust me, I do a lot of NBA coverage over there as well. A lot of NBA coverage here at Chat Sports. Give us a follow. We'll answer as many questions as we can over the next couple of days around the trade deadline. Let's talk LaMarcus Aldridge. We'll get to Andre Drummond in a minute. A couple of guys here that their teams are trying to trade him, Chase, but clock's running out. We'll see if a team gets desperate. It's looking a little unlikely for these two guys.
For me, if I'm a general manager in the league and I want LaMarcus Aldridge, I would have to be desperate to trade for him because the Spurs don't have any leverage. A couple weeks ago, a report came out from Woj that the Spurs and Aldridge were looking to part ways, and they haven't played him since then because they're trying to find a trade partner. what does that do for you?
Yeah.
It eliminates all leverage that you have because other teams across the NBA understand and know that LaMarcus Aldridge isn't coming back to San Antonio. He wants out, and he's not happy because he's been replaced by Jacob Poeltl. So, yeah, Aldridge, I think he's a prime buyout candidate. And look, at this point in his career, he's not going to be an all-star. He's not going to be the player that he was earlier on in San Antonio or with the Portland Trail Blazers. But you look at his numbers right here, he can still be a consistent contributor for a playoff club.
I made this comparison a couple of weeks ago to remember when the Mavs acquired Amari Stoudemire in the buyout market toward the end of his career, and people thought he was washed. He actually came in and averaged like 12 and 8 in like 15 minutes a game. Really efficient. I think Aldridge in the right team could have that type of an impact where he's not going to defend, but he'll grab some rebounds. He can still score at a decent level there, pretty efficient still. So we'll see. I'm with you. I don't think a trade happens there. I think he ultimately gets bought out. Also, Andre Drummond. I thought they might be able to find a trade, and maybe they still will. We'll see if the team gets desperate, but it looks like the Cavs may have to settle for a buyout here as well.
And if the Cavs and Andre Drummond agree to a buyout, reports indicate that the Los Angeles Lakers are going to be all in, and the Los Angeles Lakers could be the #1 preference for Andre Drummond. And he hasn't played since February 12th because the marriage between him and the Cavs is going to end in a divorce. But I'll tell you this, Harrison. If he goes to the Lakers, this is a guy who is capable of averaging 17-plus points per game, 13-plus rebounds, and with AD and LeBron out, if Andre Drummond were to go in there, it'd help the Lakers survive a little bit.
And honestly, it could help him establish a bigger role than what he may have had a month ago, right?
Yes.
Like say they traded for him a month ago before these guys got hurt. He's probably like 12 and 10 type of guy, not really a focal part of the offense per se. Now, though, with LeBron and AD out, not only could he go in there and contribute, he could have a big role, especially early on. And then when those guys come back, maybe that role is established for Drummond. So, I definitely think if he gets bought out, gas the Lakers. I think they're a major favorite to land Drummond. But if teams know that and they think like, hey, we're not going to get him on the buyout market because he's going to L.A., maybe they do try and trade for him before the deadline. This feels like one of those that keep an eye around the buzzer. We'll see, at 3 o'clock Eastern tomorrow. If a team gets desperate enough, I would lean buyout, but I wouldn't rule it out when it comes to Andre Drummond and getting traded. Who's the better player? A couple of buyout candidates here, a couple of trade candidates here. LaMarcus Aldridge, Andre Drummond. I think it depends on fit here, Chase.
I'm going Drummond, and he's not a big man who can stretch the floor. He's not going to knock down threes consistently. But I will say this about Drummond. He's also not an old-school big who has cement feet in the post and he can't move. He's really athletic. That's why I like him to go to the Lakers, because I actually think with the perimeter options out there, with AD when he comes back being a stretch floor for Drummond would really fit in nicely.
So type LA for LaMarcus Aldridge or type AD for Andre Drummond. We'll get some shout-outs on this one here as you guys continue to get your votes in. Let's see here. Jack says Andre Drummond. The R&B Bro says Drummond. Alexander says LaMarcus Aldridge. So does Sam. ED says Drummond. Gorman says AD, no doubt. Seeing mostly Andre Drummond's, which isn't surprising. Younger guy, more productive at this point. Marco says LaMarcus Aldridge is injury prone. He hasn't really actually had a lot of injuries in his career. Obviously,
he's been very durable.
He's older now, but he's been pretty durable. And I think that's because he hasn't really been a guy who's relied on major athleticism. That's never really been his game.
He's got that old man game at this point in his career. One of those guys, you go to an outdoor pickup court with a bunch of guys who are trying to play 5-on-5 pickup, and LaMarcus Aldridge, you look at him and you're like, this guy's worn down. He's got nothing left, but he's got that old school game, and he can just kill you and carve you up offensively.
No doubt about it. A couple more ADs from Ezra, Mike, Brian as well. Appreciate you guys getting your votes in on this one.